Welcome, colleagues, to the first of our summer reruns. Every other Friday this summer, while we aren't recording new episodes, we are going to share some of our favorite old episodes. And we are getting started this week with the episode 30 of We Want to Believe, which is the Applefest conspiracy. And we chose this because we're talking about the X-Files episode Blood, and that episode pairs really well with the X-Files episode Wet Wired, which we just talked about 2 episodes ago at the end of season 3, which was the episode Oh Crap, It's Happening Again. So those 2 episodes of the X-Files pair well together, so that's why we chose it now. We also uncover the Applefest conspiracy, so you can learn what that is. I also wanted to quickly share something stupid, which is that I failed to notice we just talked about the episode Quagmire, right? The one with Big Blue, the lake monster, who's kind of like the Loch Ness monster. And I never noticed that one of our listeners and longtime listeners and followers, somebody awesome, is Big Blue. And their account on social media is Big Blue and has a photo of Big Blue. And how did I never put that together? It was Big Blue. It was right there. Sorry about that, Big Blue. Anyway, enjoy the first summer rerun here, and you can get another episode 2 weeks from now. Have a good day. Bye. But not bye, because here's the episode.
I'm Helen.
And I'm Liz.
And we're sisters,
Scientists.
and lifelong X-Files fans.
And this is We Want to Believe.
Shall we do this?
Okay.
Okay. All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of We Want to Believe.
And if the sound sounds not optimal, it's because I am on my phone this time. Because my kids are home from school, sick.
And her laptop is not home, sick.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. My laptop's healthy. It's at work.
Aw.
If only it could do work for me.
That would be great.
It
Although,
would be great.
as we'll discuss in this episode, do we want technology doing things for us? Maybe we don't. Yeah.
Ooh, maybe
Who knows
we
what
don't.
your laptop would get up to? Yeah.
Yeah.
But before we get into this episode, though, we did do a poll on Instagram, and I wanted to let everyone know the results of that poll. The question was, is this flatworm cute? And it's sort of like getting back to the roots of social media, right? Because Facebook started as like hot or not or whatever. And it's kind of like that, for the flatworm. And so I just thought I would let everyone know that 73% of the people who took the poll rated the flatworm as cute. 27% said not cute.
I feel very, very vindicated by that. Although I feel like, who are the 27%? Who would think that baby isn't cute?
I think maybe they're not looking at the eyes enough. I'm not sure. Yeah, if you didn't think that flatworm was cute, write to us at wewanttobelievepod@gmail.com and tell us what's wrong with you. So I also then got a DM from a roller derby teammate with a screenshot of that cute flatworm that said planaria with an exclamation point.
Oh.
Yeah, and they, my teammate Shelby then also was like, and it's not a parasite. And I was like, oh, sounds like you need to listen to this Friday's episode. You're gonna love it. Yeah.
How do they know about flatworms?
I didn't ask.
Really?
I was just like, oh, cool. Yeah, you're another flatworm enthusiast, I guess. Yeah, I don't actually know her background as far as flatworms and other stuff. I have no idea.
Wow. Well, I gotta know.
Yeah. Shelby Cobra, well, flatworm enthusiast.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll find out. But today's episode, Blood, I feel like Blood was not the best title because it implies a lot more blood than was involved in this episode. And
kind of like the movie There Will Be Blood, where we hypothesized that like it's titled that to be like, no. There will be blood.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to look up, there's an episode in season 1. I can't think of the name of it right now, so I'm going to look it up, or maybe you can just remind me. We did not care for it. It was
Ghost
boring. There you go, Ghost in the Machine. That was it.
Yeah.
This has some similarities to that.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. So it opens with, I don't know. I have a lot of questions. I want to see what you think about it. I'm not
Okay.
sure what I was supposed to get out of it. Ultimately, not the most exciting episode of the X-Files. Not the worst, but not the best. It was fine.
Darn.
Um, so it starts with like a big post office like processing facility, and there's this guy just kind of like scanning and typing in numbers on this little machine, and he cuts himself and he sees the blood and he's kind of like, ooh, there's blood. And his boss, who seems like a nice guy, calls him over to talk and is like, hey, you're a good worker, but times are tough and budgets are tight, and he's laying them off. And Ed is like, oh, is there any possibility of me staying on part-time? And the guy's like, me and the guys took up a collection today. It's $100, and hands him $100, which just seems really sad and insulting and weird. And like,
Yeah.
I just feel like,
Although what
yeah,
is $100 in today's money?
that's a good question.
I mean, probably not enough to pay rent in today's money or
Yeah,
buy groceries.
yeah. Let's find inflation calculator. All right.
So how
So
much
there's
is
that.
it?
It is $205 in today's money.
Well, I was gonna guess 240.
Why
Okay.
didn't I make you guess? That was stupid.
That's that's not enough
So
to,
yeah, yeah.
you know,
Here's $200. All right. Like,
yeah.
also, like, you guys pity me, and you already told all the guys that you're laying me
Yeah.
off. Like, that's what I
Oh,
was thinking.
God,
Like,
that's true.
you already collected the money. Anyway, Ed goes back to work. He says, stay out, the rest of the week. Ed goes back to work, and the scanner he was using starts telling him to kill. It starts displaying
Oh,
messages that say, kill them all.
oh
And then you get
God.
the theme song, and I assumed it was going to open on the crime scene where Ed killed everyone, but it's
Right.
not. We're going to see Ed a lot in this episode.
Oh,
It
is
then
this like a
opens.
going postal sort of thing?
mm, that's what I thought. It is not,
Yeah.
actually. That's the
Oh.
last we see of the post office.
Oh.
Well,
Okay.
eh, never mind. I take that back.
Yeah.
Maybe there is some postal going in a way.
Yeah.
Um, just not. I think I was picturing going postal in the post office, but he's not in the post office. I'll just tell you about the episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then it's a crowded elevator, and there's
hmm
people coughing, and it's uncomfortable, and there's a man like in the back, and he's sweating, and he looks really uncomfortable, and there's a digital display on the elevator that says no air, can't breathe, kill them all.
God.
And then we open on the crime scene, and there's multiple bodies in like the
Ooh.
entryway of this building near the elevator, and Mulder's coming in,
Okay.
and the local sheriff seems like a nice guy. He's like, thanks for coming in. I'm glad the FBI
hmm
sent someone. We're in over our heads here. They're in Franklin, Pennsylvania, which is a real town.
Ah.
And it's a small town of 6,000 people in real life. In this, it's supposed to be a small town, but it also has an elevator with a really tall building. So, I'm like, okay, I've been to towns of 6,000 people. This is not what they look like, but
Yeah.
whatever.
Franklin, famous for the computers that told people to kill,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
Yeah.
actually, Franklin is the home of John Wilkes Booth. Um,
No kidding.
yeah, I looked that up. So,
Oh,
yeah, and it was even a smaller town
wow.
back then. It also has a famous Applefest that draws hundreds of thousands of people a year, they claim, to this town of 6,000 people to their Applefest.
Oh,
It is happening this weekend.
oh, really?
Yeah, now, of course, once this episode is released, the Applefest will be over, and you're all going to have to
Oh,
wait until Applefest 2024. But yes,
but
it
then
begins
we'll
tomorrow.
be there.
We should like broadcast live from Applefest
Yeah.
24. Yeah, I like that.
Wait, where is this? Franklin, where?
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. Oh, okay. I would go to Pennsylvania.
And Applefest looks cute. Got a lot of
Yeah.
apple-based foods and
Yeah.
rides and stuff.
Yeah. Cool. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Mulder notices the screen in the elevator is broken, and the sheriff tells him, like, look, we never have any violence, and we've had
Uh-huh.
different people have killed 22 people total in the last 6 months, and we've
7 different. Whoa. So,
there's like all these murders, and they
okay.
all seem random, and in all the cases, the people ended up basically being killed by the police because and they make it look legitimate and not sketchy like one would imagine, like where they're like, it basically, you have to kill me or I'm gonna kill this person right now, this bystander.
More of a hostage sort of situation.
Yeah. And so Mulder's like, is it drugs maybe? And the guy's like, the region is mostly apple and cherry growers. They don't do drugs, which I was like, hey, Applefest. Yeah.
And also there's actually probably a lot of drugs happening.
But yeah, I know. I was like, right, small towns and they never do drugs. That's not how, this isn't the big city.
Places in the middle of the nowhere are famous for not having drugs.
Right. Yeah. So Mulder does notice there's some gray stuff on the index finger of the guy the suspect, the guy who died. And then we get a little check in with Ed, who's going to the ATM, and he sees a little girl with a nosebleed. And then he looks back at the ATM and it's telling him to take the security guard's gun and kill everyone because there's a security guard near the ATM.
Can I pause for a second? I have a prediction. Yes. Also, I want to say, my friend Rachel, who is sometimes a podcast listener, I just saw her run by my house.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
That was exciting. Hi, Rachel. But also, I want to predict. May I?
I should have been asking you from the start to predict. Okay. Absolutely.
So I think that there's some sort of weird electro something happening with Ed that's causing people to get nosebleeds and computers to malfunction.
Okay. I'll check in with you in a little bit and you can adjust or whatever. So then we get a little bit of Mulder's voiceover. He sent Scully some notes about the case and he's saying like, these are spree killings, they're not serial killings. He sends Scully all of the notes and pictures. He's convinced there's some outside factor. He had the residue analyzed that was on the guy's finger. It is an undefined non-toxic chemical, maybe from gardening. I feel like,
what?
How do you get maybe from gardening out of undefined non-toxic chemical? You're like, probably gardening. And I like rewound it. I was like, what am I missing here?
Oh my gosh.
And
that's
so
really funny.
I feel like, this episode, for all our chemist listeners, as I talk about this, if you have any special chemist insights, please let us know.
Like perhaps my friend Katie is listening and going,
Katie and Josh.
The non-toxic gardening chemicals. Sure.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. That's that's the only type of non-toxic chemical, or the ones used in gardening, actually. Yeah.
There's the organic chemists and the inorganic and then the gardening chemists.
Yeah. Oh, I'm a gardening chemist. Yeah. Now, Helen, you took a lot of chemistry. You took more chemistry than me. So you might have some insights as I continue to mention chemistry things.
Great.
We'll see. He tells Scully he sees no evidence of UFOs, and she looks surprised as she's listening. And he notes that on all the crime scenes, there was an electronic display destroyed. A pager, a fax, a cellular phone. And I know, it was like a pager and a fax. That's awesome. And he says there's no way to know who's going to be a killer. And so next we see, and it's filmed like a thriller. And I want to say a 90s thriller, but it just looks like a 90s thriller because it was the 90s. It shows like this woman in like a dark mechanic's shop. She's approaching outside. She's in a business suit. She looks really afraid. And it's just her and the mechanic there. And the mechanic kind of has a sinister vibe and it's very poorly lit. She's clearly afraid. And he's like, yeah, I found some other stuff wrong with your car. It's not just the one thing. There's other stuff wrong. Can I show you? Come back here so I can show you. And she's like, oh, no, that's okay. And he's like, no, I need to explain you're not gonna be able to drive your car very long. You got to come back here. And it's clear she's real afraid of him. And he says something, and I meant to ask our dad and I forgot. He says, I did a diagnostic test of the engine. It should be 168 horses at 62 RPMs, but it was nowhere near that. And I was just curious, is that total BS? Or is that true? So I meant to ask and I failed to. So maybe a car person can tell us that too.
Yeah.
So, as you might expect, while the mechanic is saying this stuff, the diagnostic test screen starts telling the woman, the mechanic is a liar. He's going to kill you. You need to kill him first. So
Oh.
picks up a big wrench and she beats him. And then she stabs him with, I don't know, something, a screwdriver maybe, and she kills him. And then she leaves. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so now we have Mulder at the mechanics at the crime scene. Now they don't have a suspect and they're trying to figure out if it's related. And okay, this is where we introduce a character. He's an older guy. He's the boss of someone. Okay. I thought at first he was the boss of the mechanic, but that clearly became clear that that was not the case. Then I thought he was the boss of the sheriff. And that seems sort of true, but not quite right. So we're going to call him the mayor because he seems in control of the town, but he's not the mayor. I don't know what he is. There's an older man of some authority, and I couldn't figure out what his deal was.
Okay. All right. And
so,
you're sure he's not the mayor?
Yeah, because I don't think the mayor is the boss of the sheriff. And he's definitely, because they said the sheriff said, this is so-and-so. He's the boss of, and I thought he said of the mechanic, but clearly that wasn't right. So he's the boss of stuff. He's the boss of Franklin, Pennsylvania. Okay. He's the boss. He's the boss. We'll just call him the boss. Okay. And so the boss is like, I don't think this is related. And Mulder's like, no, look, there's another smashed readout. I think it is. And so they look at the last appointment of the day at the mechanics and they see that it was Mrs. McRoberts, that woman. And so Mulder and the sheriff go there and they go in and they're talking to her and she's like, oh, and she's clearly nervous having him in her house. And she's like, my husband handles car stuff and he's not out of town. So I don't have any, or he's not in town. So I don't have any answers. And they're still suspicious. And Mulder mentions,
who is they? Is Scully there?
Sorry, no, Scully is not there. Scully is not there. And I actually wanted to talk about that. This would be a good time. I think that this might be when Gillian Anderson was pregnant because we know we're coming up on when she ends up taking maternity leave when she was abducted.
Sure. Right.
When the character is abducted, that
not Gillian Anderson.
No, that'd be a terrible maternity leave.
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't know, there's a lot of jobs with no parental leave. And then is there a job where, there's parental leave, but you're abducted by aliens. So I don't know. You can choose. So it's just Mulder and this sheriff. And I really think that's part of what made the episode a little boring for me is that there was a lack of Mulder-Scully interaction.
Yeah.
And so it's just Mulder and the sheriff. As you can imagine, the woman's microwave starts saying they know what you did on the little printout. You got to kill them. And so she attacks Mulder. She gets a knife out of the drawer and she stabs him in the arm and she gets some momentum. And she's like on top of him about to slice his throat open.
Whoa.
And so the cop shoots her. The sheriff shoots her. And then we get Scully. And she's doing an autopsy. So maybe she came to town to do the autopsy, I guess. And so, I'm going to tell you some science words.
Okay, I'm ready.
Her adrenaline was 200 times normal. And her adrenal gland shows where, as if she is using it
Keep
too
going.
much.
Keep going.
Okay.
Yeah. Keep going.
It shows evidence of intense phobia. I don't understand how an autopsy could show evidence of intense phobia.
No, it couldn't. No.
Yeah.
No. But, that's not a thing.
Yeah. And then there's some stuff in the vitreous humor in her eyeballs. That's in the eyeballs, right?
Yeah.
Isn't the vitreous? Yeah. And it's the same as the stuff that was on the finger of that one guy.
Oh, well, sure. So she was gardening and stuck her face in the chemicals.
Yes. Or maybe she put her contacts in it and,
Wait,
that
That's really strange. Okay, I had
Yes,
nothing. That vitreous humor, yes, part of your eyeball. Um,
we can
not
confirm
known,
that.
yes, not known particularly for unknowable chemicals, be
Yeah,
they toxic or non.
yeah.
Hmm.
Well,
Okay.
Scully says that when this chemical stuff is combined with adrenaline, it produces something similar to LSD.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
All
All
right.
right. It's hard to prove or disprove that without knowing what the chemical is.
Yeah.
So,
And
all
I've
right.
given you everything I've got with respect to
Yeah.
that chemical.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Okay.
our next scene, we go back to Ed. Would you like to check in and make any adjusted predictions or anything?
Ooh. Hmm. Well, it seems like when people are already in a stressful situation that and they were somehow exposed to this chemical. Ooh, you know what would be great would be
Ooh,
if this
what?
all tied back to Applefest and they were gardening chemicals and it was all of the apple farmers that were being exposed to this chemical and then went under stress,
So,
went crazy.
Helen, I'm going to tell you, you're not as far off as you might think.
Oh no. Oh
Now,
no.
obviously, Applefest is not in this episode. I don't know that it existed in the 90s, but I do think it plays a role. Okay,
Oh no. Okay.
yeah. So Ed is applying at a Kmart type place where he goes and he asks if they have openings and they say no. And there is a advertisement for a no, it's not an ad. They're like doing it in there. There's like a little mini blood drive. This town is chock a block full of blood drives. It is
Wow.
like, yeah, very
Huh.
well provided as far as blood.
Okay.
Again, it does not look like a little town. It is,
Yeah.
significantly, I mean, I feel like it's probably Madison sized is the
Oh
vibe you get
wow.
from this town. I mean, maybe, yeah, no, that feels true. It is
Wow.
not a small town, but they tell us it is, so whatever.
Yeah.
um and so he is looking on the TVs that are for sale in the shop, and he sees these images flashing of Charles Manson and
Hmm.
the OJ chase and somebody being beaten and a truck overturning on the highway, and it keeps repeating real quickly. And
Creepy.
then comes through a message that says turn around, and there's all the guns that are for sale.
Oh.
And he's like, go get a gun. And that's
Ooh.
then we leave Ed there for the moment.
Ooh.
Yeah, yeah, it is creepy. And I
Yeah.
started thinking, do you remember there's this episode where this woman is hallucinating, like, or maybe a man is hallucinating Milosevic, the like Serbian war criminal?
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not like the main thing in the episode, but it's part of it
Oh
where
no,
someone
I
is,
don't remember that at all.
yeah,
Weird.
so I thought maybe that was going to be in this episode, but it's not. And it sounds so weird when I say it out loud that I feel like,
Hmm.
did I make it up? But I don't think I did.
Hallucinating Milosevic.
I was hallucinating Milosevic into an X-Files episode. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
All right. Huh.
and so then, okay, now we see Mulder. Okay, this seems really random. Mulder's jogging, his arm is
Okay.
bandaged, and he sees this man in this like dump truck type thing, sprinkling stuff out of the truck onto the lawns. He
Okay.
just happens to see it. He's in like a suburban neighborhood in this town, and he looks down at the stuff that was sprinkled, and in the midst of it is a dead fly, a bunch of dead flies. And so he grabs one and he brings it to the lone gunman.
Oh.
Yeah, they're in this. Um, and so they have a bunch of outlandish ideas at first. They think that there are micro cameras made by the CIA that are on the fly.
Okay.
And then that's quickly proven not true. And Mulder brings up LSDM, which is what this similar to LSD
Oh,
thing
okay.
is.
Mhm.
And he's like, have you heard of that? And they're like, I guess you haven't read the August edition of The Lone Gunman. And
Oh, does this
and then
get into like oh gosh, what's it called? Never mind. Keep talking. Keep talking.
okay, I will say I do think there's some stuff with The Lone Gunman that has not aged that well. Like,
Oh, really?
yeah, Frohickey, kind of creepy, you know, he's kind of a creep.
Oh,
It's sad, you know, and I think
yeah,
back in the day it could be dismissed as like harmless creep. And now I
right.
feel like, no, I'm not cool with this. Because he's like, yeah,
No.
where's your little partner? And Mulder's like, she wouldn't come. And he
Mhm.
goes, she tasty. And
Ugh.
ugh. And Mulder's like, it's
Ugh.
men like you, Frohickey, that gives perversion a bad name, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
But
Now, wait a
yeah,
minute. I'm just remembering, which is the real clean cut one? Is that
that's
Byers?
Byers. That's Byers.
Okay.
I do like Byers.
I was just looking through um old pictures of mine from when I was in on the forensics team in college. So very different forensics, so like debate team.
Right.
Um
Yes.
and I had a picture, and now keep in mind this was back when I had to like take a picture and then get it printed from my camera.
Right.
I had a picture printed out of this random kid, I mean, guy, young man, in a suit who looked so much like Byers that I had to stop him and take his picture.
Oh my God. And you told him that? Like,
Yeah,
I took your, that's
yeah,
hilarious. I want to see his picture.
yeah. I'll have to find it. I'll have to dig it out again. Anyway, that just happened like a few weeks ago.
That's so funny.
Yeah. Um, okay, but the what I was trying to say about the LSD was if they were going to mention and I'm spacing on the name of it, the like LSD experiments that the government
Like
was doing.
MK Ultra?
Yes, MK Ultra.
Yeah. That's the name of a skater in our derby league, as it
Oh,
happens. Yeah, I
cool.
think I think it's because her initials are MK, so that like is
Oh, I
really
like that.
clever, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they don't mention that, but they do mention some other government stuff.
Okay.
So they bring up um they show the footage of the DDT spraying in like the 50s where like you know it's this chemical that we thought oh it'll kill pests and there's like kids you know walking through the spray and
Oh God,
laughing and
yeah.
stuff and all those pictures and so they talk about how this
I'm sorry, can
LSDM.
I
Oh
interrupt again
yes.
for an unrelated public service announcement, essentially?
Yes. Yeah.
I was just looking up the recommendations from the CDC about DEET usage.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Okay.
and it's actually in children over 6 months of age. It's, I mean, no, don't spray DDT and have anyone walk through it.
Right.
But it's more advisable in children 6 months or older for them to wear mosquito spray with DEET because the risks of mosquito-borne illnesses outweigh the risks of bug spray with DEET in it.
Wow. Really? No kidding.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. That's all. Okay,
Oh, that's
go
good
on.
to know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so they talk about how this LSDM is okay, I'm gonna say a chemical word.
Okay.
So this is for you, and then if you got nothing, this is for our chemist listeners.
Okay.
Lysergic dimethrin.
Okay. Lysergic acid is something.
Right. That's isn't that LSD? Or
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think
So lysergic di
lysergic is definitely the L in LSD.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um
lysergic acid diethylamide is LSD.
diethylamide. And so this is lysergic acid or lysergic
Dimethrin?
dimethrin.
Is that just a
Okay, I mean
pretend
the
word?
like
Could be a pretend word.
the methyl versus ethyl, I believe.
It could be,
Um,
by the way, it could be dimethyl. It's possible because I was just listening. I didn't have captions on.
okay. That implies like just a different number of carbons, I believe, methyl versus ethyl.
Okay.
Um, and I that's all I've got. Okay.
Okay. So he says it is a, what word did I write in my notes? Okay. It's an unreleased synthetic, some word that looks like botawheel
What?
insecticide. I have no idea what I was trying to write here. I was
Wait,
taking notes very fast. I can't even guess at what this word says. Botanical.
botanical? Oh,
Botanical. There we go. My God, it's insane. Yeah, an unreleased synthetic botanical insecticide. It acts as a natural pheromone, and it basically scares bugs into leaving the plants.
huh.
So
Okay.
that's what they say. Okay. And then I don't know how we get here, but Mulder has night vision goggles and he's watching this field where some stuff is going down in the distance. And then, like,
Okay.
a helicopter that looks vaguely military-ish flies overhead and dusts Mulder with some stuff.
Oh God.
Yeah. And so he ends up in the hospital, and that's when we first get our first Mulder and Scully scene together. And I feel like immediately the episode is more interesting with Scully there. Yeah. And so Mulder's doing research. The sheriff is there, Scully is there, and the boss is there.
Okay.
Whoever he may be. And Mulder's like, I've been looking at this map, and all of the killers live in heavily sprayed areas. They're spraying the town with this bottle wheel insecticide. And and the boss is like, nah, this is ridiculous. He's being crazy. And the sheriff's like on Mulder's side. And then the boss is like, yes, it's true. We are doing this spraying. We are doing this. And it's because there's this Eurasian fly that eats the apple and cherry trees. And so they're like, we need to protect these people's livelihoods. See, it all comes back to the apple trees.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
And so the boss says, it was proven to me to be safe. And Mulder's like, by who? And at that point, the sheriff and the boss just leave the room. They're just like, and I don't know why. I don't know. This is sort of like 2 episodes ago with Cigarette Smoking Man and Skinner, where all of a sudden Skinner was just like, just get out of here. Like, sometimes people say things and I'm like, why? I don't know.
Yeah.
So they leave the hospital room. And Scully's like, okay, so this all makes sense, except the LSTM doesn't seem to have affected you, Mulder. Like, you seem okay. And then Mulder looks at the TV screen and I'm like, uh-oh. And I wrote uh-oh in my notes. And then you see appear on the screen, do it now. And I'm like, oh, this is pretty creepy. But it's an ad for a health club. And it's like, join us, get fit. And I was like, okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Right? And so then Mulder all of a sudden is like, wait, what about subliminal messages? And Scully's like, that's paranoia. And Mulder's like, it's a fact. And so Mulder comes up with this theory, and I think this is correct, that this insecticide is heightening phobias, because all of the people who were the killers, it turns out, had phobias of some sort.
Okay.
And then while the insecticide heightens these phobias, and then they see these subliminal messages that tip them over the edge into killing people.
Okay.
And so, like, the idea is that
which part of this do you think is correct? That this is what's
when
happening
I say correct, yes, that's what's happening in the episode. I'm so sorry. And actually, I am sorry. I misremembered when the exodus of the sheriff and the boss is, because Mulder then says these messages were relayed purposefully, and then the question is by who? By who? And then the sheriff leaves, and so so I knew it was after the question of by who, then the sheriff leaves. Yeah. So the sheriff leaves, and then Mulder says he's probably one of those people who thinks Elvis is dead. And so Mulder seems to have the impression that that the sheriff had left because he was like, oh, this is just 2 bananas. You're such a out there person. And so Mulder is saying more to Scully that, like, he thinks this is an experiment on this town, and that, like, they're doing a controlled experiment to see, can we induce fear in people?
Oh, creepy.
Yeah. And so the boss comes back, and the boss is like, okay, I agree. We're going to stop spraying, but we only on the agreement that our explanation for why we're not spraying anymore does not mention all these killings. And I feel like, is that up to him to decide? Who is this man? I don't know. Like, again,
He's the
he's king.
publicist.
He's the king of Franklin. I don't
Yeah.
know. Um, and then we see Ed again,
Oh no.
and he sees an ad on TV about cholesterol screening, and it shows a finger prick, and so there's blood.
Uh-huh.
And okay, then
Oh, is
there is
Ed's phobia blood?
yes,
Ah,
which I understand.
sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So Ed's phobia is blood, and then okay, there is a woman ringing his bell. He's at home, who's in a white coat, and she's there for a blood drive. And I think, oh, he must have just be like hallucinating now. But no, it is revealed later when they're like, oh, the blood drive lady said she was here at this time or whatever. That like,
Oh, that's
I'm like,
so weird.
I did some research, or I attempted to. I'm like, we're door to door blood drives,
Yeah, were
and
they?
not as far as I can tell.
Yeah,
No,
I would not think so. That's super weird.
I mean, I do think that like there is people could advertise for an existing blood drive door to door, and that might be what she was doing,
Sure.
but she was dressed like a nurse, like she was in and or doctor, like she was in a white coat and seemed all prepared to take some blood.
Oh,
Again,
that's really weird.
it's a
Hmm.
town rich in blood drives.
Yeah.
And so then Ed destroys his TV because his TV is like blood. She wants to take your blood. And so Ed destroys the TV. The woman
Hmm.
keeps ringing the bell because it's some sort of blood drive information emergency. I don't know.
Weird. Okay.
Yeah, I know. I felt like, I don't know. I also don't like needles. How would I
Right.
react if there was, I mean, like, that's.
Well, I know we've actually talked about this because I have a pretty severe vomiting phobia, and we've talked about how like I sometimes get freaked out like if my kids have a stomach ache or something because like it's something that seems like it can just happen in the middle of the night. And you and I have talked about how like how scary it would be if like suddenly you just got surprised by needles, like if someone
Yeah,
was just like suddenly there for a blood draw.
surprise,
Like
blood
we've
test
talked.
time.
Yeah, yeah,
Apparently,
that would
that's
be
a risk.
terrible.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
yeah, especially like that she won't go away.
Yeah,
She
that's
keeps ringing the
awful.
bell. Yeah. Um, all right. It's just me talking to myself because the plumber showed up early at Helen's house and she had to go deal with that. And I hope that it wasn't a person secretly coming to draw her blood and is actually a plumber. So I'll tell you more about the episode, and you listeners might know about it before Helen even does, depending on when I tell her. So basically, okay, it is so much harder to tell myself about this episode of the X Files than to tell Helen herself. Okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to look at a photo of my friend Katie and myself, and I'm going to pretend I'm telling the photo about this. This is okay. All right, Katie. So I just feel utterly deranged. Um, Mulder is looking at a list of the people who live in these high risk areas where they're spraying a lot, and they're checking in with these people. And there's just a few people left on the list, and Ed's name is one of them. And they go to his house, and his doorbell has been ripped away, and the door is unlocked and like kind of half open. And so they go in there. Ed is gone, and they see an enormous empty gun case. And remember, he bought this gun at a Kmart type place, and this is clearly like a sniper rifle. And I mean, even in America, are we selling sniper rifles at Kmart? I have to imagine we aren't. I don't know. Um, and so they noticed that his watch is there, and his watch was smashed, a digital watch, at the same time that the blood tester lady was there. I also want to mention that they mentioned that Ed had no car, and they seem to have a robust public transit system in this town, which, again, this is a small town of 6,000 people, and they've got like multiple bus routes. I just feel like these writers have never even seen a real small town, have they? Um, so Mulder sees the smashed watch, and he sees when the blood tester was there, and he's like, I know where Ed's going, and I know what he's afraid of. And so there's Ed on the bus, and he's going towards the hospital. And that's where Scully and Mulder are waiting for him. But then the digital display on the bus is like, actually, Ed, nope, you got to get off. And so he screams for the door to be open. He gets off the bus, and it goes back to the sheriff and Mulder and Scully. They're at the hospital. They're waiting for him. The bus gets there. He's not there. And then so Mulder's like, did you see I don't know, you see Ed? I don't know, maybe his picture. And the guy's like, yeah, I dropped him off right by the community college where a blood drive is happening. And so now we see Ed. Ed is at the community college. There is a digital display on a building, and it tells him, climb the clock tower. So that's not good because he's got a sniper rifle. So the police are on their way. Scully's at the hospital waiting. Mulder decides to go ahead to the college. Ed's at the clock tower. Mulder and the sheriff arrive, and Ed starts shooting, and it's not good. No one seems to die. They're all diving for cover and stuff. And so Mulder runs up the stairs, and I was thinking, this seems like a bad idea. But then Mulder's like got his gun, his normal sized Mulder gun, trained on Ed, and is like, drop the gun, drop the enormous sniper rifle, Ed. And Ed's like, I can't, they won't let me. And Mulder, and this I thought was quite clever. Mulder's like, look, man, if you shoot me, there's going to be blood everywhere. And then he notices Mulder's bandage on his arm from where he'd been stabbed. And he sees there's a little bit of blood at the edge of the bandage. And he freaks out and he drops the rifle. And whew, okay, Ed is not killed. He's arrested. He's relieved. He's like, I don't want to do this anymore. So, he's glad that Mulder didn't kill him. And so Mulder is then going to call. I have a note that says he's calling it. I can't read my own handwriting. He's calling the Air Force. I don't think that's right. He's calling someone. Probably, I would think it's Scully, but that word is not Scully. I don't know what it says. But Mulder's making a call. This is the very end of the episode. And oops, Mulder's cell phone display says, all done. Bye-bye. So, okay. My questions that I would like you, the listener, and Helen to think about are like, all right, if this is an experiment, all these messages, these subliminal messages seem awful specific to the people that are reading them, right? They're not general messages of killing. They're like, there's blood, you need to kill this guy, or that mechanic's going to attack you, or whatever. And are they just putting them everywhere? Is the boss of this town, the king of Franklin, somehow have access to every digital screen in town, including like Ed's calculator? It didn't really add up to me. I started to think, with that all done bye-bye message, is this something more supernatural and like an evil force doing this? I don't know. It's like, it sounds like it holds together where you're like, oh, experiment with subliminal messages plus this chemical. Aha. And then you think about it and you're like, no, this doesn't hold together. What is going on here? So I don't know. And we're now going to imagine Helen saying, all right, so Liz, do we have any listener stories this week? And that's my best Helen impression. And then I would say, actually, Helen, we do kind of, not really. It's not a listener story. It's something that my friend Amanda told me, and I was desperate for stories of the supernatural to share on here. So I'm going to share it. And it is simply that she was in Galveston, Texas. Galveston, Texas, apparently dense with ghosts. As many ghosts as Franklin has blood drives. And I guess there was a flood in Galveston in 1900, and lots of people died, and it's famous. And so now everything's haunted, is my understanding. And so Amanda and her in-laws were in Galveston for a few days, and they rented an old house that was built 4 years before the flood, a really beautiful old house. She said it was almost like being in a museum. They had all this like stuff about the history of the house in there. It was really cool. And so Amanda's aunt-in-law, I don't think we have a word for that. Her what would it be, mother-in-law's sister, was determined to see a ghost, and she did note that her ceiling fan spun on its own the entire time, even when turned off. Now, Amanda also acknowledges we did have the AC on the whole time, so that creates a draft. Could be that. In fact, probably is that. But hey, I happened to hear this story last night. I'm the only one recording, and I can say whatever I want, so I decided to share that. All right, we're going to wrap it up here. And by we, I mean me and my photo of my friend Katie. And we will see you next week. Next week's episode, Helen is going to watch it. It is called something. What is it called? I knew it earlier when we started recording the episode. Sleepless. It is called Sleepless. And what I remember it being about is possibly Vietnam vets and not sleeping. I do think it is a literal title and there's not sleeping. And then I think, and I could be wrong, but I think after that we get to the classic pair of episodes, Dwayne Barry and Ascension. Ooh, really good. All right. Remember to subscribe and all the other stuff there's so many things you're supposed to do. Please do them. Share. That's a thing you should do. And subscribe. Is liking a thing? I don't know. Anyway, follow us at We Want to Believe Pod on Instagram. And you can always email us with any thoughts you have about the chemistry in this episode or about Applefest or your own listener stories of the supernatural at wewanttobelievepod@gmail.com. And of course, you can look at our full list of episodes and everything anywhere you listen to podcasts and on our website, wewanttobelievepod.com. Oh, did I give our email as just a website? Maybe I did. Our email is wewanttobelievepod@gmail.com. I had this weird sense I said it wrong. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. Signing off. There we go. Goodbye. How do I stop recording?